Hello and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today. My name is Aisha Hadeja, and I will be your moderator for today's session. As a woman working in the food and agriculture landscape, and in my capacity as an associate partner at Sahel Consulting Agriculture and Nutrition Limited, I am immensely grateful and in awe of women that are making contributions from the field to the research labs, to the board meeting rooms, and also in the policy arena, which is why we're here today to celebrate women women change leaders that are transforming food systems in Africa. And we do this off the back of the International Women's Day Celebration 2023, which has the overarching theme, Digital, Innovation and Technology for Gender Equality. Without further ado, we would go through the agenda for today. So it's a 1-hour session, so sit tight. It's action-packed and get ready to take notes because we do have a surprise towards the end of the session. We would take an opening remark followed by opening charge to get us raring and ready to go. We would hear from 2 amazing women, short presentations, and then we would go into the Leading African Women in Food Fellowship launch. You will hear all about that in a minute, and there would also be time for questions and answer sessions. So let's get started. And for the welcome remarks, I would like to introduce Mr. Temitope Adegore, who is the managing partner at Sahel Consulting. So Temitope is a seed systems expert, and the root and tubers have a special place in his heart. But beyond that, he is a proficient and an expert at business strategy development, business sustainability, project management, and implementation. So thank you very much. Over to you, Temi.
Thank you very much, Aisha. Can you hear me well?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Thank you so much for the introduction. Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon to all our friends and champions in the food ecosystem across Africa. I want to welcome you all to this special event as we celebrate the International Women's Day today. On this special day, I would really like to recognize and celebrate all women who are making exploits around the globe, especially on our continent in Africa. I'm sure you all know a woman who has inspired you, whether as a mentor, a colleague, a family member, or a friend. Let's take a moment to honor and celebrate all of these women, very amazing women. And I won't talk a lot about the history of the International Women's Day. I know many of us have read a lot, we've heard a lot about it, but today we celebrate the progress and achievements of women in all facets of life, especially women who utilize digital innovations and technology in their fields in different fields across agriculture, nutrition, finance, governance, politics, business, various sectors. We really celebrate every woman who has made very meaningful contributions to society, having overcome very unique challenges and obstacles. But today, I would like to especially celebrate and recognize the women leading the way in transforming food systems across Africa. And I want to especially celebrate our board chair and founder, Dr. Agnes Kalibata. Thank you for joining us today. Dr. Catherine, thank you for joining us. And other amazing women who are leading the way in building resilient food systems, with Sahel Consulting, at African food chain makers, and across these amazing continents. These women work to ensure that everyone has access to safe, nutritious, and healthy foods by contributing to the development of sustainable and resilient food systems. They are inspiring, and they are really inspiring all of us that are currently around, and also the next generation of leaders. Women are active participants in the food system across agricultural value chains, and you all would agree with me, playing various roles from primary production to food on the table. And according to FAO, women actually estimated have about 43.7% of the agricultural labor force, and about 55% of the total agricultural workforce. But there are still opportunities in increasing their efficiency, by leveraging technology, promoting digital literacy, facilitating market linkages. And the theme of this year's International Women's Day, which is Digital Innovation and Technology for Gender Equality, is really spot on. At the African Food Change Makers, we support small and medium entrepreneurs operating in the African agriculture landscape to start and scale resilient and sustainable business models by providing training, the needed training, funding opportunities, trade linkages, and fostering a very vibrant community of entrepreneurs. All these activities are geared towards changing the narratives and driving transformative food systems. Also, through our work at Sahel Consulting, we are implementing various gender transformative programs and driving financial inclusion, and access to digital financial services in underserved communities across the continent by linking smallholder farmers, especially women, to financial services, and then, of course, making them to be part of the formal banking system, giving them the opportunity to be able to save more and, of course, have a means of identity. But despite these efforts at Sahel and also at AFC, a lot still needs to be done, in ensuring that we really actualize gender equity and also digital women by calling out discrimination, drawing attention to bias, seeking out inclusion, and stopping all forms of gender stereotypes in the food system. So Sahel and African Food Change Makers remain very committed to driving women's inclusion in food systems through strengthening of local capacities, building resilience, driving policies towards the advancement of women, transformative technology across this continent. And I believe that we're going to hear a lot of very inciting ideas from our list of speakers today. I want to welcome you all again. Please listen very attentively, follow the conversation, and I wish you all a happy International Women's Day. Thank you very much for joining, and God bless you all. Thank you, Aisha. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Temi. And indeed, celebrating women change leaders is not a thing that has to happen in one sector. It has to happen across board. Now we move ahead to our opening charge, and this is a session that would set the scene for us, essentially making us understand why it is important for innovation and technology to serve gender equality. And for that, it is my absolute honor to call on Dr. Agnes Kalibata, who is the president at AGRA, Sustainably
Growing Africa's
Food Systems. Over
food systems. Very good. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me, and happy Women's Day to all of you. Temi, thank you for those introductory remarks, and happy Women's Day to you. And it's great to see a man leading us today and really helping us be part of this celebration. Let me also thank you, and Didi, for inviting me to be part of this great opportunity. And thank you again, Temi, and the whole team at Africa Food Change Makers and Sahel Consulting for the work that you're doing, really to ensure that women and women-led SMEs have an opportunity. I'm really particularly proud and happy to see that you're celebrating African women leading in food systems. It's not food ecosystems. Leading is already a challenge, as it would be, and I'm sure as many of you who are in that area know, leading in food systems is definitely a triple challenge, especially today when food systems are challenged in every way that we know. Coming from COVID-19, which we saw so many SMEs being impacted, we saw so many women SMEs being impacted, and we saw a lot of erosion of capital, a lot of erosion of capacity. And as if that wasn't enough, climate change, if you live in Kenya, continues to be one of those things that are testing your ability to be in this ecosystem. And I'm sure it is the same thing across the continent, but also then the Russia-Ukraine crisis is making it difficult at business and at home. So it's difficult to be a leader in general, and it's even more difficult to be a leader in food systems. So I really appreciate that you actually use this as an opportunity to celebrate leadership in food system. I really want to commend the work that Sahel, African food changes are making in supporting African SMEs and advancing African SMEs, especially women SMEs. Because again, it's a very, very difficult landscape, but it's a landscape where we need the African SME, the one that we call the hidden middle, because 80% of the food that comes to us goes through the hands of SMEs in one form or another. 80% of the resources, that means that in fact, 100% of the resources that come to our families and the households are happening because these SMEs are putting their best foot forward. So I really want to appreciate and recognize that the work you've taken on is not necessarily easy, but it is very critical to the survival and the growth of the agricultural sector. So thank you for being and putting your best foot forward for women, but also ensuring that these women are the most critical sector. I want to also recognize that here at AGRA, we have a very strong team led by Sabdio, who is an amazing woman that also we are celebrating today, that oversees Value for Her being an initiative we've created. Also recognizing that women have challenges of capacity, of knowledge, of access to finance, but also of who to talk to when things don't work the way you would want them to work. And I'm sure in Africa's food change makers, you know that. Value for Her really works to ensure that over the 1,500 businesses, women businesses that are under Value for Her, that they have an opportunity to engage, they have an opportunity to connect with the ecosystem, they have an opportunity to ask questions, and they have an opportunity to test their ideas somewhere, but also to be part of a strong community of growing women. And again, I really, really want to thank every woman that accepts to be part of this journey, because it's not an easy journey. We've decided to be even bolder this year. We'll be engaging in finding really as many as possible youth SMEs, especially women youth SMEs, bring youth in the agenda from a perspective of SMEs, but also from a perspective of just ensuring that you and I are creating jobs for young women, and SMEs are going to be very critical to creating those jobs. So I want to end on a note of optimism. I started on a note of pessimism, given where the sector is at, but the optimism is the hope that we get from these SMEs that are doing their best to make sure that the sector comes through. The hope that we get from all these women that are carrying the flag and making sure that they're doing this for them and the business that they represent, but also for all those other businesses that they're pulling along, the weight they're pulling along with them. So let's celebrate them today. Let's remember that they actually are Africa's biggest middle. Let's stop calling them the hidden middle. They're actually Africa's biggest middle. And we need to honor them, celebrate them, and give them the support they need to be able to give back to us as a community that needs food systems to work. So thank you, Didi, for what you do. Thank you, Africa's food change makers. Thank you to Sahel Consulting, Agriculture and Nutrition Limited for the work that you do to support this ecosystem. It's an ecosystem that needs so many more like you if we are going to take it, to make it work and take this sector off the ground. So thank you for doing what you do. And again, thank you for giving us an opportunity to celebrate women. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kalibata. Sustainably growing Africa's food systems. We really appreciate your message. And there we have it, ladies and gentlemen. The hidden middle should not be hidden anymore, because that is the channel through which 80% of resources actually flow through. And quite importantly, as Dr. Kalibata mentioned, networking is important, mentorship is important, who to talk to when things are not working. It's key, and I hope we will discuss a lot more of that later in the session. Now, I would like to move on to the first session of the day, which is on innovation and technology for gender equality in the African food system. And to take this short presentation is Dr. Catherine Nakalembe. And I am honored to introduce this award-winning scientist that is an assistant professor at the University of Maryland's Department of Geographical Sciences, in which her research focuses on developing remote sensing and machine learning applications for smallholder agriculture. And in addition to that, she's also the program director, NASA Harvest Africa. Over to you, Dr. Catherine.
Thank you so much for inviting me today. And it's so wonderful to speak right after Dr. Kalibata. She's like one of those people that I really absolutely look up to. I was wondering if I could share my screen instead, so I can use the time more appropriately, because I think there.
Please, yes, please go ahead.
Sure, I'll go ahead. Share my screen. There we go. So I sort of prepared this presentation a different way than I kind of had originally shared it. And I apologize, it's going to look a little bit messy because I want to skip some things. But as I was saying, I'm really, honored to be here today, and primarily because having met Didi, who's an amazing woman in the last week or so, and speaking after Dr. Kalibata is a wonderful honor for me. I wanted to share a little bit about my work and then kind of point different things that women have roles in that are really critical and essential, but also really have been missing in many instances. And it's essential for the success of a food system as a system, as the work that AGRA is leading is really critical, and also from the perspective of Africa. So my work, so I'm going to talk about a little bit about my work, and then I'll talk a little bit about myself personally, but I thought it'd be interesting to start with my work. Is focused on advancing the use of Earth observations for agriculture monitoring, utilizing machine learning, and satellite Earth observation. So this sometimes, I think, to many people seems like something that is so far out of reach or something that is not accessible. And we're talking about satellites and space, but all of these things, there is a role for a lot of people that I think is not recognized. And I myself, I didn't start this way, and I'll talk a little bit about that. But I think the key point here is that being open to trying new things, as well as being committed to work hard, and once a door opens, taking advantage of that particular opportunity. So to explain a little bit about what I do is, in my past life, when I was doing my PhD, I spent a lot of time going around in the field. As you can see, this lady here holding a camera, walking in a field. And anybody can do this role. Anybody can collect data that are critical for making possible the fancy things that are done later on. But my work combines satellite Earth observations collected over time, and then we collect ground truth data or information from the ground that we combine with satellite data, run a lot of computer algorithms or computer programs that train the satellite data that we utilize to get information from satellite data, which is usually massive, so covers a whole country, or and it's in many cases global, as in we can map the whole world with the same eyes. And then we get information on cropland, so where are crops, crop type, where are specific crops growing. And then we can model things and forecast things like yield going forward. We also get information on rainfall, temperature, soil moisture. And then later on, that information can be utilized for assessing what is happening in a region. So what the crop conditions are, what is the disease status of a particular region. And ultimately, my hope and the goal of our Africa program is that it can support policy and programs that can help a farmer, but eventually, in truth, really also directly reach the farmer, and then the farmer can make choices on their own. This is something that is, ubiquitous in many places where farmers have access to technology, but it is not the same across Africa. So a lot of farmers don't have access to the the internet, for example, that is required to look at information in this dashboard. However, as part of the work that I do, we try to make these things accessible to decision makers. And one of the things that I've worked on recently is a regional food balance sheet that is supported by AGRA. And the idea is, once we know what the yield estimates are for the season across multiple countries, a policymaker, let's say at the African Union or the Common Market for Trade, COMESA in this case, can determine, what country might need support or what parts of what countries need support. And internally within a country, a minister of agriculture can determine earlier on that there might be a drought in region A, there might be a bumper harvest in region B. We need to figure out how to get food from A to B. And so this is sort of where, this is why I find my eyes light up, in the sense that when you explain this to a decision maker, they're able to, really understand why it is important to use satellites in this case. And going back to the role, so there are engineers, scientists, people who work in meteorology, people who do a lot of machine learning, and all of these are job titles and work that needs to get done. One important thing is about perspective. So the fact that I do this and I'm motivated to make this technology work for Africa, from where I'm from, makes it, a much more rewarding, but as well as challenging thing, because a lot of methods that have been developed in the past work well, for example, for the United States, but are not designed for the agriculture that we have across most of sub-Saharan Africa. So we have very small mixed fields. And so our methods have to be more robust, more rigorous, and we require high resolution data that are not necessarily easily accessible. And so the key point here is that there are lots of things to do in this pipeline, which include working with students, with people at ministries of agriculture, with extension agents in the field, and I work across multiple countries. And this sort of what I set up these priorities, where I want to improve the systems where people can access data. I want to develop methods that underpin the data we see in those systems, which is methods for agriculture monitoring for Africa using machine learning and Earth observations. Capacity, making sure people have the capacity to utilize this thing. So I do a lot of trainings with universities and other organizations. And then partnerships. So partnerships are also important personally for growth, because you can't do everything all by yourself. And there's been a lot of success. So I'm going to go really quickly in the next couple of slides, which is why I have my screen this way. I apologize. About systems. So systems like this, that you can utilize data, you can go in and access the data and write a report like these food security bulletins that you can see in the right. And we've had these in Rwanda, in Kenya, in Uganda, in Tanzania. And these are run by national organizations. They're not run by us at the University of Maryland or through the Harvest program, but they're run by national ministries. The other thing to add about systems is that these data are available, and we have a lot of training material that a person can start looking into and get acquainted and interested in the work that we do. As informed programs like this risk financing program in Uganda that supported the northeastern Uganda in providing projects that people can work on when that drought happens. And other things, for example, the food balance sheet that I mentioned before, providing information in a timely way. The other thing I wanted to talk about my work is I get to meet incredible people all over the continent. And I have these really interesting projects that are really, you can call them as innovation from an African perspective. So we have this project on collecting ground data across countries, and people can volunteer if they wanted to collect it. And we're working with, in East Africa, we call them boda bodas in Uganda. For example, a boda boda driver can collect data that we later on use in this very fancy machine learning pipeline for extracting information on where crops are, that later on feeds into how we monitor crop conditions. So I'm going to go really fast. I think I probably have about 5 minutes left or less, maybe 3. Just to share about sort of my journey. I really like this quote because it is one that I think every young girl should go by. This is something I learned when I was so much older. That the size of your dreams must exceed your current capacity to achieve them. If your dreams do not scare you, they're not big enough. I think sometimes not even dreams, like things you want to do that you want to achieve are scary. For me, I find this is like my normal. And so if I wanted to work to support more countries or work with more students, it's scary because there's, you know, a limit to the time that I have available, but it's something that I want to work on. And the reason why I say this really is when I was this old, this is me when I was born, where I grew up in Uganda, I didn't have big dreams. I was just going one day at a time. And then a little bit later on, I used to play badminton. I used to be called Catherine Badminton, and I played badminton so well with my sisters that we did wonderfully. But I realized that at some point I needed to figure out a way of overcoming the challenges and the limitations that have been placed on my life. And that's why I sought to learn as much as possible. So I got my master's, my PhD, and then fast forward, I have been working all over the continent, working on many different things that have led to a lot of recognition, including the Africa Food Prize, which Dr. Kalibata also is a recipient of. And these awards are sort of, you know, a recognition of work and journeys and experiences that I've had across with many different people. And the last thing that I wanted to add is having the support of other women who are like you, who are going through the similar things you're going through, is really important. So being a mother adds to the challenge. Dr. Kalibata said manage an African food system is a triple challenge. When you add being a mother, I think you add working in this space as a mother, you know, makes it a ×4 challenge, and it is incredibly hard, but it is also what makes it worth it. So finding other women who are achieving incredible things like Dr. Kalibata, Didi, among others, has just been an absolute honor. And I'm glad to be here today and happy to answer and share more. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Catherine. We really appreciate you, and we do celebrate you in line with our theme today. It is inspiring to see the work that how far you've come and the work that you are doing now and that you will continue to do. What really struck me was when you said, when your eyes lit up, you have to explain to a decision maker in a way that they would understand. Perspective is important, communication is important, and of course, data speaks for itself. In the interest of time, we only have one. We can only take one question for Dr. Catherine. I would pause for a few seconds. Do raise your hand if you have a question, and the team would field. And if there are no questions, or if you think of another question, please feel free to drop it in the chat box, and we would move on. Thank you very much, Dr. Catherine. Now, it is my absolute pleasure to introduce to you another amazing woman that is making waves in the food and agriculture sector, Oluwafisayomi Kayode, who is a senior manager at Sahel Consulting, Agriculture and Nutrition Limited. Fisayo is a trained animal scientist and is working on building sustainable livestock production systems in Africa. And she has been doing so over the past 5 years. She's spearheading at the Advancing Local Dairy Development Program in Nigeria, which we would hear a little bit about in the next few minutes. So without further ado, Oluwafisayomi, please take it away.
Thank you so much, Aisha, and thank you everyone for having me. Thank you to everyone in this room for joining this event. And I appreciate every woman on this call. Thank you, Dr. Agnes and Dr. Catherine, for that inspiring story of yours. Today I'm going to be really talking about what we do at Sahel and how we are working towards driving ecosystems solution for gender equity through our work. Aisha, can you please confirm if you can see my screen on presentation?
Absolutely. Presentation mode, please.
Yes.
Thank you.
So Sahel Consulting is a management consulting firm based in Nigeria, and we work across Africa. We are focused on transforming the agriculture and nutrition landscape through various services that we would deliver. We do a lot of value chain analysis within the landscape. It cuts across crops as well as livestock. We also do consulting support for business clients and market entry strategies. Sahel is very passionate about policy reforms, and that has made us over the past years to work closely with policy agencies, the government and private sectors to provide consulting services and advisory around improving policies that affect the food and ag sector, including policies that would ensure the integration of gender and women empowerment in agriculture. We also deliver ecosystem solutions through our development projects and livelihood support. We have training support programs, one of which I'm going to be talking about today. Our vision and mission first is to be recognized as the most trusted consulting partner and point of reference in the African agriculture and nutrition landscape. And our mission is to transform the landscape through tailored, innovative, market-based research, strategic advisory, training, and building sustainable ecosystem solutions. We have a wide range of partners that cuts across development organizations, both locally and internationally. We work with a lot of private sector companies, the government, as well as NGOs. We have a lot of footprint across the landscape, and I'm going to be spotlighting 4 out of the numerous projects that we are currently doing or have done in the past. The first one is advancing local dairy development in Nigeria. On this project, we focus on developing the local dairy sourcing in Nigeria, where we work with processor partners, smallholder dairy farmers to ensure that they are increasing their backward integration efforts and increasing local dairy sourcing while we work towards the reduction of high importation of dairy and dairy products into the country. We currently work in 5 northern states in Nigeria, and we have this program prioritizes women. I'm going to tell you why in the next slide. Then we have the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development Capacity Support Project. This is a 4-year project that provides strategic institutional capacity strengthening to the staff of the Ministry of Agriculture. On this project, we've partnered with all the departments in the ministry, and we started off with conducting a needs assessment to understand the technical gaps in policy and technical capacity areas. Then we tailored the training programs to the needs of the staff identified. The next project is a seed systems project. It's called Building an Economically Sustainable Integrated Cassava Seed System, BASICS for short. We are currently implementing the second phase of the program, so we call it BASICS 2. And primarily we work with IITA, who is the lead implementer of BASICS 2. And the program aims to transform the cassava seed sector in both Nigeria and Tanzania. So what we do is to provide support to farmers to improve the quality of seeds that they produce and increase their access to affordable seed cassava varieties. We spearhead the development of processor-associated seed systems model, where we identify processing partners to produce seeds, as well as offtake cassava stems and cassava products such as starch from farmers. We also have the collaborative seed program. This is also a transformative program, and we are partnering with the Dutch government on this one to improve farmers' access to the use of quality seeds and improved varieties across all agricultural value chains. The program contributes to the National Seed Roadmap, and we are currently working closely with National Agricultural Seed Council to deliver the goals of this program. So now into why we are here today. We all know that there's a growing gender disparity in the food and agriculture landscape. Dr. Temi, in the beginning of this event, mentioned that about 55% of women working, 55% of the labor force working in agriculture are women, but then they do not have the equal opportunities within the landscape, which affects their productivity, growth, livelihood, and general inclusion within the space. I'll be spotlighting Aldin, the program I mentioned earlier, and talking about our gender efforts on this program. Aldin focuses on women. We have women at the core of this program because primarily they are the ones that would wake up in the morning, collect milk from the local cows and process them into local products that are sold in open markets. We see that this is unproductive and they are being fragmented from the formal dairy sector. So we further tried to understand the gender-specific challenges within the dairy sector. This we did in 2017, and the full report, NDTP Gender Study, is an open source report that you can check on our Sahel's website. So we see that they have limited ownership and control over production resources, especially land and cattle, which limits the expansion of their dairy businesses. They also lack access to inclusion and formalized structure of support. Women also have limited availability of skilled female extension agents, which we've experienced during the lifespan of this program, as we have to now identify and train young women to ensure that we have increased number of extension agents that can deliver training, support, and extension services to the women that we directly work with. Women also have limited access to finance to diversify and grow their income, and they spend a lot of their time doing unproductive things because they have to attend to their family and at the same time produce and process their milk in a very traditional way. The program aimed to empower women, dairy farmers, and enable them to increase the income and their livelihoods and that of their households through various interventions. We have 6 key interventions on the Aldin program, but I've pulled out these 3 that focuses on prioritizing women empowerment. The first one is on training and extension, advocacy, and behavioral change. So on this, within this intervention, we have different training packages that will deliver to women. First, on improved dairy farming practices. We also have nutrition education, where we train the women on diversifying their nutrition, using what they have available. We support them in establishing home garden within their homestead so that they can have access to nutritious vegetables and other products. There's also self-help groups and cooperatives formation. For this, we prioritize the women a lot and ensure that we have them joining groups that they are very comfortable and they can drive leadership and make decisions within their group and within their communities. So we have groups that are mixed, where we have women as the executives. We also have women-only self-help groups based on the choices of the participants, so that we ensure that women are we are creating an environment where they can speak up, they can feel free to explore their capacities, their abilities, and just expand their potentials. Finally, we have financial inclusion and income diversification support. This is also at the heart of the project, where we provide support to women through financial literacy. We train them on record keeping, on group savings and personal savings, and we help them to diversify their income. So now I'm going to be talking about Salamatu, a very inspiring story from one of our dairy farmers. Salamatu is a smallholder dairy farmer from Barikin and Plateau State. In a small community, she's been able to participate in the program, received training on improved dairy practices. She belongs to one of the self-help groups called Lugere Women Association. She currently supplies 60 liters of milk to one of our dairy processor partners, and that is Integrated Dairies Limited in Plateau State. And through the program, she's been able to access the use of digital financial service. So she has a bank account and she gets a milk payment directly into the account. Prior to now, she has to rely on a third party and to get a payment in cash. So you can imagine that Salamatu didn't have to struggle a lot during the during the challenge around cash access in Nigeria recently. She also started saving consistently and was able to purchase a future phone for herself so that she can have more access to information and relate with others. Within her self-help group, she was able to access a loan 2 years ago, and she started diversifying her income beyond dairy production. She started with 2 goats, and today, Salamatu currently has 16 goats. She's flourishing, and she's a beneficiary of innovation and technology for gender equity. For our FMAT capacity support project, we also ensure that there's at least 35% of women participation in all the training programs, both at national and regional levels. And the project also ensure that they mainstream gender in all the topics disseminated across their training programs. The team is currently planning to embark on a study trip to Zambia to understudy the country's that this will be, lessons can be drawn from it to implement within the Nigeria ag-food sector. So this is my charge to all of us here, that we need strategic partnerships and catalytic initiatives to bridge the gender gap and address issues in food and agriculture systems. A lot of these women that we interface with have enormous potential that can promote transformation, but they are being held back by social norms and practices. So we need a lot of capacity strengthening. We need a lot of awareness to continue to go on, and we need transformative initiatives that can boost the inclusion of women and gender equity within the food and agri sector. And that's a beautiful picture from some of our women groups during a cooking show where they were learning how to make nutritious meals from what is locally available to them. Thank you so much for listening, and over to you, Aisha.
Thank you very much, Fisayomi. It is always interesting and inspiring to hear and see stories from the field and see how programs are being designed and policies are being rolled out. Thank you. So now we're heading to the second aspect of this International Women's Day Celebration 2023, where we would introduce the Leading African Women Food Fellowship Program. And I wouldn't say anything about this because I would like to introduce Mrs. Ndidi Okonkwo-Uwuneli, the founding member and executive chair of African Food Change Makers, and also the executive chair of Sahel Consulting Agriculture and Nutrition Limited. So Ndidi Okonkwo-Uwuneli has over 25 years of experience in international development. She has co-founded and is currently the executive chair of a lot of organizations, but notably Sahel Consulting, ACE Foods, and now African Food Change Makers. Ndidi also serves on the board of Rockefeller Foundation, the Global Alliance for Improved Nutrition, AGRA, and Nigerian Breweries, amongst others. So it is my pleasure to introduce Ndidi Okonkwo-Uwuneli.
Thank you so much, Aisha, and thank you, Dr. Kalibata, Temi, Dr. Catherine, and Fisayo, for your excellent presentations and for your engagement today. We're so excited to have such a group of people online. I want to give a special shout out to some people I've noticed online. Pat Mitchell, who is one of my mentors and sponsors, one of the conveners of TED Women, and a rock star all around, the founder of Connected Women Leaders. And Pat, we're trying to get you to come to Nigeria. Pat is almost 80. She has 13 grandchildren, and you wouldn't know that she's such a powerhouse because she's on her heels from 7 a.m. till 11 p.m. at night getting things done. And she tells the stories of women. So I always like to celebrate women. Dr. Kalibata is a role model for so many of us. Not only has she shown leadership in Rwanda, transforming the food and agriculture landscape, she's leading AGRA with such passion and vision. She led the UN Food System Summit, doing amazing work globally. So I applaud you. And one of the reasons why we started this Leading Women in Food Fellowship is because of the women you've heard from today. And if we just go to the next slide, I conceived this idea because of what we are doing at AFC. Africa Food Change Makers really believes that our small and medium-sized enterprises are the engine of growth in our food ecosystem. And as Dr. Kalibata said, they are not the missing middle. They are the core and the engine of this ecosystem, or we call them change makers. And what we do at the Africa Food Change Makers is really provide a community of support, engagement, and collaboration for these change makers to scale. As I proceed, next slide, our mission is to enable African entrepreneurs to start and scale resilient and sustainable agribusinesses that feed Africa and the world. And our vision is 1 million successful and sustainable African agribusinesses that are transforming the food ecosystem and are recognized and respected globally. We've been supported by a great group of board members and partners to build a community where now we have entrepreneurs in 37 African countries that have access to our one-stop shop website that has data, funding, networking, a marketplace where you can trade. We actively connect our entrepreneurs with export opportunities. We provide e-learning on climate, on trade, on scaling, all available to you for free. So please become a member today. Every week you get data in your inbox, you get funding opportunities in your inbox, and then we nominate our entrepreneurs for programs globally and for awards as well. But as this is IWD, and given my own experience as a woman in the food ecosystem, we decided to launch the Africa Food Change Makers focus on women. And this fellowship was really started because of my own recognition that the Dr. Catherine's and Dr. Agnes's are still very isolated in our ecosystem, and the Fisayos. In many rooms, they are still the lone voices. And honestly, we all face tremendous challenges as we try to climb up the ladder. We feel oftentimes that we face tremendous barriers in the fight to gender equity. So we've created this fellowship thanks to the support of the Skoll Foundation to really amplify, celebrate, champion, and advance the work of female food change makers. And our objectives is first, a dynamic sisterhood. And I've seen this with Pat and Bonnie and Selena, who is also one of our advisory board members, all the power women who are sisters supporting each other. But I also know that many of the women on this platform who are not part of a sisterhood feel isolated. So we want to fix that. We also want to facilitate access to critical resources and connections to advance the work of these innovative change makers. We want to amplify their voices, and we want to accelerate gender equity. So we've launched this fellowship, and the application deadline is fast approaching, March 8th for nominations. Next slide, please. And who are we looking for? We're looking for disruptors. These are women who are creating and adapting tools and models in science and technology. They're inventors, they're researchers, they're product developers, they're entrepreneurs, and we call them disruptors. I see some of them on this platform who I have nominated already for this process. Then we have narrative changers who are telling stories. They're using social media, they're using film, they're using photography to change the way this ecosystem is viewed, to change the narrative about women in food and agriculture from a woman with a hoe and cutlass to a dynamic storyteller who uses her voice. We want bloggers and curators and food stylists, and then trailblazers, the entrepreneurs who are making groundbreaking contributions through their companies that are scaling either in the seed systems or in food processing or in retail, and who are paving the way for others, and we call them trailblazers. And then ecosystem enablers. These are the public sector, private sector, and nonprofit leaders who are introducing and scaling ideas, financing approaches, insurance, policies, research, and who are in the development landscape, who are leading change as ecosystem enablers. And finally, we have top chefs, and we believe chefs and cooks are critical. And so we want to showcase these chefs who are making changes. But more than that, we want all of these individuals and these dynamic women to know each other. So that as one person is working as a chef, the other person can help shape policies for chef. We want policymakers who are female to know the financiers, who are female to know the entrepreneurs who are female, and that sisterhood can transform our ecosystem. So what are we doing for them? We're amplifying and celebrating them. They're going to have a dedicated database curriculum, a 6-month program. We're facilitating access to critical connections for them. And this fellowship will culminate at AGRF in Tanzania. We're bringing all 25 women to AGRF to meet Dr. Kalibata and to meet the entire amazing groups of people who will be at AGRF. And we would hopefully have some of them even speak on different panels at AJRF, because we feel like that would be a great opportunity for them to learn and grow. We don't believe in silos. We believe in partnering with others who are already doing good things and bringing more women to these platforms. And so hopefully some of them will be on TED Women, Pat, over the years, just so that they can get their voices heard. Or we might even have a TEDx for LAFF. And following slide, please. So what is the overview of the curriculum? I've designed this curriculum, but we're still getting inputs from it. So we're going to have personal goal setting where they're going to come up with their visions, their career plans, how they're going to build a community of support for themselves. It's the whole curriculum on power and influence, building your brand, building coalitions, finding and cultivating sponsors, managing power, and managing crisis. Value and ethics and integrity, your moral compass, your moral courage, your accountability, communication, visibility, public speaking, writing op-eds, moderating panels, tech talk prep, mastery. And for mastery, we definitely will make sure that they all become climate champions. And then leaving a legacy. How do you shape policy? How do you become a role model and engage in reverse mentoring? How do you manage pressure, your succession plan, and your personal foundation? So these are some of the topics. As I mentioned, on the 8th, our nomination process is closing. We already have over 450 nominations, but we want to get more from all of you. And then there's going to be the training and support. And as I mentioned, the graduation at AJRF in Tanzania in September 2023. So that's really our current process. Anna is in charge. Anna is on here with support from some. Eligibility criteria, you have to obviously be female, under 40, at least 3 years experience, hopefully more, with demonstrated impact, a citizen of an African country, and a resident in at least one African country. So please do nominate change makers who you think fit this criteria, and please get involved. And at this stage, I just want to give a special shout out to some of our board members. I see Daniel is on here. I see Bonnie's on here. Selena is an advisory board member. Again, Pat, thank you so much for your presence. And I'm going to ask to Bonnie and Pat to please say a few words just on the theme today of gender empowerment and women leadership. And on your journeys, quickly, 1 or 2 things that you would give advice to the women on this platform about what has been your secret sauce for breaking and shattering glass ceilings and making a lifetime of impact. So let me start with Bonnie. I know this is a cold call, Bonnie, but we can't have you on the platform and not have you say a few words. Bonnie, just to give a brief background, is a rock star. Not only has she spent the best of her years driving nutritional transformation across the world, but she has a special place in her heart for Africa and has worked across the continent through many hats, GAIN, USAID, et cetera. So Bonnie, just a few words from you.
Well, Ndidi, thank you. And good morning, everyone from the United States, where it is quite chilly, actually. Ndidi, no problem. You know me, any point in time, I like to talk. So thank you for giving me the microphone. I have got chills listening to this presentation. And, you know, oftentimes we're talking to ourselves on topics like this, but I have to tell you that we are part of a community, and we are part of the food system itself is enormous. And what's so exciting here is you've mentioned all the buttons. When we think of the food system, and no one knows this better than Agnes, we're talking about the supply chains and women's role in the supply chains, but we're also talking about the drivers, women's role in innovation, women's role in economic empowerment, women's role in the household. Women, as we all know, hold an enormous responsibility for children's outcomes. And what is food for? So I'm delighted to be part of Sahel. And from my background, it really hit when we said, you know, what is our role? We're still fairly isolated. And I need to go back to the days of when I studied. I'm an agronomist by training. And there was a class of 50 graduating from my university, a graduate in agronomy. And only 4 of us were women. only 4 of us, and we were carrying quite a burden or quite a heavy load to bring that science and a women's perspective on that science, right? So what do women farm? What can women farm? So I have to say, I appreciate this opportunity. You folks are inspirational, and we are the innovators, and we are supported. We must know, as mothers, as daughters, as wives, as partners to our loved ones. We are supported by a whole network of individuals. And in my case, I have gotten a lot of my inspiration from my husband, who has given me the strength, the freedom, the support, taking on the child rearing and the career, so I can advance. So thank you all. Indeed, you are inspirational. Agnes, very nice to see you. Hope to see you soon. And thank you all on this call for your inspirational work, and happy International Women's Day. Go, you go. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. Thank you, Bonnie. We love you, Bonnie. Thank you for all you do. And thank you for being a proud board member of Sahel Consulting. We're honored to have you. I'm going to ask Pat to say a few words. Pat, you cannot be on this platform and not say a few words. Is Pat still there? Okay, I don't know if she's still there. So Aisha.
There I am.
Okay, go ahead. Yes.
I'm trying to join you by video as well, and Diddy, so that there we are. What a surprise, but a welcome opportunity to say good morning. Are you hearing me?
We can hear you and see you looking gorgeous.
Oh, that's very kind. And what a wonderful invitation, Ndidi. I always feel, as Bonnie articulated so well, that when I have the opportunity to listen in and to learn more about the work that Sahel is doing, and that all of the other astonishing entrepreneurs that we've already heard from, the women leaders in the Africa food ecosystems work, I'm not only deeply inspired, but I am also ignited to ensure that more people know about this work. And as you know, Ndidi, I'm committed to using any platform, any opportunity I have to elevate awareness of the work, not only of the severity of the challenges being faced, but of the innovations that are facing these challenges with solutions. And most of those solutions, as we have already witnessed this morning, led by extraordinary women leaders. So just a brief word about the work of Connected Women Leaders. We are so proud that Ndidi has been a part of this cohort of work from the very beginning in 2017. And we began to look at the intersectionality of all of these issues, from food security, global health, reproductive health, to the climate crisis, and the way in which the climate crisis must be solved in just and sustainable ways in order to ensure that all of the other global threats and challenges can also be solved. So we are focusing on solutions and a new climate justice campaign that we will be launching in the summer, coming to Nigeria, Ndidi, for sure, because there I know that we will find not only the women leaders to take this forward, but also the solutions, as this will be a campaign intended to make more visible the work that we are hearing about today, to raise support for it, and to ensure that the world's women leaders join us in the campaign and in the movement towards solutions. So I will continue to listen and be inspired. Thank you, Ndidi.
Thank you, Pat. You are a star any day, any day. Thank you for giving us the platform. I want to mention that it was Pat who gave me the opportunity to share on the TED stage. And that has been such a great gift to me, Pat. And you do that for so many of us every single day, through Sundance, through TED, through your life and work in media and engagement, and we value you. So thank you for your life of impact and legacy, and thank you for believing in the next generation of African female leaders. God bless you. I'm going to hand over back to Aisha to round up today. Thank you to all of you. We have some amazing surprise guest speakers and they have blown us away. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ndidi. Thank you very much, Pat. And thank you very much, Bonnie. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Please nominate the women, the amazing women in your life that are enabling, that are disrupting, that are changing narratives, that are trailblazing, and that they're also top chefs. In our chat boxes, you will find all the links that you need to be able to do that. Feel free to also follow Sahel Consulting and African Change Makers so that we can continue this dialogue. It doesn't end here. And happy International Women's Day to all of us and to the people in our lives that support us, that celebrate us, that speak for us, that mentor us, and that champion us. Thank you very much, everyone, and God bless. Have a nice evening. Thank you.